Hi there, do keep watching this video if you're looking for a really nice way to make your class interactive and dynamic, a class on the ING and the infinitive. First of all, we need to know what this is all about. It's a common topic in the exams, level B2 more or less, really fundamental, and from then on it's something that your students need to know. So it's quite complicated, so let's clarify it for our students. The way that I like to do that is write a sentence on the board or on a piece of paper. The monster finished eating the finger soup. The monster finished eating the finger soup. And then you ask your students, well, where is the verb in this sentence? The verb or the verbs. Well, don't say the verbs because that's too much of a clue. But you try to elicit from them the idea that in this sentence there are two verbs. And then write a second sentence on the board. The monster wants to drink blood. These are my ideas. You can use whatever ideas you like. If you're studying some kind of business topic at the moment, then make it about economics. I don't know. Mine are about monsters because I'm thinking about monsters recently. The monster wants to drink blood. Write it on the board, elicit from them, get them to come up to the board, circle what they think is the verb, and then the next step is to say, oh yeah, right, there's two verbs in both of these sentences, but one of them is followed by the ing, and the other one is followed by the to infinitive. Once we've got that clear, that's kind of giving them some kind of basis of what they're going to be studying. Too many times, myself as a language learner, I've been studying something from a book and not really knowing why I'm studying it. But let's just make it clear that this is complicated. There's no real rules that they can follow. There's a lot of lists, but we're there to help them so they don't have to remember lists. They can just follow our advice and we'll help them get the hang of it. Okay, so there are different sections. As I've said, it's about learning lists. There are different sections. We've got A, verbs which take only the ing. B, verbs which take the infinitive. C, verbs which take ing or the infinitive with no change in meaning. And then D, verbs which take the ing or the infinitive, but there's a huge drastic change in meaning. This last one, I'm going to do a whole separate video on that because it's really complicated and I want to spend some proper time explaining you how I give my class on that, and we'll just go straight in and have a look at the first three. So the verbs which take only ing, I have a list of three. I think three is like a number that students can more or less remember long term from information that you're giving them in one day. So this is their mission today, is to memorize these three verbs that take ing. And then I check back the next few classes for the next millennia. I'm checking my students. What are those three fundamental verbs that always take ing? Okay, for me, they are enjoy, avoid, and finish. I enjoy watching TV, I avoid doing the washing up, and I need to finish making this video, editing this video, or whatever. So these are verbs which only take ing. You give them a list of three. It's not too hard. It's not too much to expect for them to remember three verbs. And then they have to remember that prepositions are followed by ing. So if prepositions are followed by ing, that means phrasal verbs. So you can give them some examples and please ask them for some examples. Write them up on the board, get them to come up and write them up on the board. The more movement that you have in your class, the better. Just remember that. Maybe they can think of some other examples of verbs which take ing. Maybe they can give you some sentences using these verbs. Maybe they can give you some extra phrasal verbs. Brilliant. Whatever they can do, be happy. And then I kind of link it back into reported speech because there are some reported speech verbs that use ing as well. So for example, suggest, admit, deny, and recommend. He suggested going for a walk, she admitted stealing the cake, she denied cheating in the exam, and I recommended taking a holiday. So it's a verb plus the ing. Maybe that's too much for your students at this level. Maybe you've already done reported speech. Maybe it's a good idea to mix it all in and do a little review. I don't know, it's up to you. Maybe it's just worth mentioning it, like a little scribble on the blackboard, or a quick review orally. It's fine. And then we'll move on to the next topic. So you want your students to remember there's 3 verbs, the fact that phrasal verbs, and then you've got your reported speech. Then we move on to verbs which take infinitive. Gosh, it's just a list. It really is just a list. I can't imagine how it is for a non-native learner of English to have to get the hang of this. So something that I find is that people don't like learning lists. We need to try and simplify it for them. We need to break it down, and something that we can do to make it more dynamic and activate, you know, those learners who are maybe more kinesthetic, is take your printed list, screw it up into a ball, and ask one of your students. Ask one of your students to choose a word off the list, and then ask that student to scrumple the ball back up, throw it to another student, until you get, I like lists of 3. I think 3 is an okay number to manage. But if you want to involve your students more and get more on the list, that's fine. Try and get the people who you think are more kinesthetic learners rather than visual or auditory learners. Try and get them involved in this particular activity. Okay, so my examples were agree, deserve, and learn. Just to give you some examples if you don't know what I mean, that verbs that take the infinitive. I agreed to do it. I deserve to win. And I'm learning to play the piano, for example. So that's how we use the to infinitive after another verb. It's not too difficult, but it is for learners. Really it is. Then we've got the verbs which take the ing or the infinitive, and there's no change in meaning. So this sounds like really easy, you know. Some of the examples are love, like, neglect, prefer. So, you know, I prefer to go on Thursday. No, I prefer to go with my friend. I prefer going with my friend. Very, very similar in meaning. Not really too important whether you use ing or the infinitive. I love rollerskating. I love to rollerskate. The same with like. Very, very similar. So you can give them some examples, ask them for some sentences, or to make it more dynamic and get people moving. Again, I really like people moving in my classes. I think it's really important. You can write them on a piece of paper, print them on a piece of paper, get the students to write them on a little piece of paper, individually the words. Scrumple all the little tiny pieces of paper up, put them on your desk, or put them in a hat. I don't think anybody really wears a hat these days. If you're wearing a hat to class, put your little pieces of paper in there, and have a coin and flip the coin. So get each student to come out individually. Each student flips the coin. If they get heads, I would like them to make one of those sentences, a sentence with their piece of paper with ing. If it's a tail, then they make their sentence with the infinitive. Make sure you get lots of examples. Also make sure that you have enough pieces of paper for everybody to have a turn. And that helps keep your class dynamic and fun. The next section is verbs which take ing or infinitive, but there's a big change. I'm just going to give you a quick example. I remembered picking up the jacket, and I remembered to pick up the jacket. So I'll go over how to teach that in my next video. Look out for that. And when you've finished this class, as a review, it's a good idea to play the board race. So you put a list of all the words that we've seen. They'll depend on your class. All the words that we've seen, put the list on the board. One side put ing, the other side put infinitive. And you need 2 repetitions of that because you're going to have 2 teams. So you divide the class into 2 teams, and you have them one by one. Run up, and then tick the side, either ing or infinitive for each verb. They have to do one verb at a time. And then they run back, give their board pen or their chalk to the next team member, and do the same. They review everything, maybe get a few extra sentences out of there. Really good chance, really good opportunity for feedback. Make sure that the students have actually picked up on what the class was about. And I hope you like that. Don't forget to check out my next video that is actually about the complicated section. And good fun with your classes. Have good fun.